Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the Barn Chirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a lap. Clap it up, boys. Clap it up. Another episode, another week. Full send into the second half of the season, technically, for the NHL, coming off the All-Star break. We are the Barn Chirpers, of course, at Barn Chirpers Pod. Interact with us on Instagram and Threads. You know how to do all the other stuff if you want to hear more from us. Justin, did you watch the All-Star game?
No.
Or the skills? No, neither did I. Neither did I. I thought about it, but then I just had better things to do. Truly. I don't know. I mean, it's not that, again, we talked about it last week. It just, it's a fun thing. Again, I do, and I said it on this program, I enjoyed that they revamped it. I like that. But at the end of the day, like, there's just not really any stakes. So I'm not going to spend my time watching it.
Yeah, I always view it as it's not for us anyway. Like, it's an attempt to grab the casual viewer and lock them in on the season. So, I mean, I watch too much hockey as it is. I don't need hockey that doesn't mean anything.
Also, I feel like it's definitely more of a being there type thing. If I was there, it would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But on TV, like,
yeah.
There isn't any other stakes, you know.
Did you watch the PHF 3-on-3?
I didn't watch that because that was Thursday. So I didn't. That was Thursday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I caught it.
I didn't stay up for that.
I watched it on like replay or something because they had it up to watch it afterwards. So like they had the whole thing, but like everything was boring. So I skipped through everything and just watched the PWHL showcase, which was pretty fun.
I did see Ella Shelton scored though, so that wasn't surprising at all because she's top tier. I mean, we talked about it before. We know Sarah Nurse is the face of the PWHL, but honestly, Ella Shelton should be the face because she is destroying the league right now.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, she's essentially like coming for that top title. You know what I mean? She's even doing. I mean, Taylor Heisey's having a pretty solid season, but as the number one pick, like Ella Shelton is showing her up. Is showing everybody up, really. So
showing the league up. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean it's cool to see though that she's got a chip on her shoulder. She's like, all right, watch this, you know. So,
that's right.
So we're into that. Scooting over, we do have to kind of bring the mood down a little bit. We have to, as we said, we won't be speculating at all on the Team Canada 2018 sexual assault case, but some more did come out, and it's simply that the initial hearings took place last week. So the London, Ontario police are essentially in, I suppose, a discovery phase, sort of. They're laying out all the evidence, and so these hearings are going to continue to take place over the next bit of time. Essentially, what was reported, I believe, by the Globe and Mail, I actually saw the report from Frank Saravalli of the Daily Faceoff. This case could very well not be heard or seen until 2026.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to take, like, we're literally just on the very start of what's, going to take place with this hearings and evidence and testimony. So it's going to be a long process. I guess one part of it is all of these players are going to be UFAs at the end of the season. So they are on their leave of absence. And from what I saw, what Frank Saravalli said is essentially the league isn't going to take any punitive measures until there's some type of rulings in this case, because if they are found innocent and the league punishes them, then it's really hard to come back from that, essentially. So the league is essentially just letting them be on their leave of absence. And then, they're going to see how everything plays out before any other punitive measures will take place if need be. And I guess I'm sort of 50-50 on this. The league did give salary cap relief to those teams involved for those players' contracts, so they can, essentially use that salary cap on the squad. And I guess I'm 50-50 on that because while the team, it's not their fault that I'm going to choose my words very carefully. It's not the team's fault that these charges, arose, but also all of these players were signed after, speculations were about, right? So I'm kind of 50-50 on it, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. Like, okay, that's where I'm at. Like, I suppose we'll see what happens and where this goes is really all I can say.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add, and I don't know, I saw this somewhere. It came out over the All-Star weekend. Was I guess teams were left in the dark was the way it was worded. A lot of the teams didn't know, and again, that feels very 50-50 to me. I don't know if that is just somebody trying to cover tracks or what, but I mean, I would like to think that if we knew that these players were involved in this, that they wouldn't have signed their deals, but there's no way to know right now. So what we know is what we know, and that's all we can really pass on. So
agreed. Yeah. Again, not speculating on anything. Same thing to piggyback on your idea. I would like to believe that the teams, when they signed these players, there was nothing to speculate about. So, we're just going to do business as we normally would. But yeah, anyway, this is going to be a long process, and anything else that comes up, we will report on that. And again, we're only reporting the facts that are put out. We won't be speculating on anything else there. But thankfully, there is no speculation. A couple big trades happened just last week, Justin. First one, Vancouver acquires forward Elias Lindholm from the Calgary Flames, sending over Andrei Kuzmenko, defenseman Hunter. He's got a very German sounding name, and another defenseman, Yanni Yurmo, a 2024 first round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth round pick. That fourth round conditional one will be wherever I believe the Canucks finish at the end of this season. So, yeah, man, a haul for Elias Lindholm going to the Canucks. The Canucks have just gotten more dangerous, adding a guy like Elias Lindholm to their lineup.
You love to see it for Lindholm because the last season and a half or so, he's just kind of been floundering in Calgary, and what was it? 3 full seasons ago when he went to Calgary, he lit it up. He was looking real good, and I don't know what it is that slowed him down. But I mean, clearly the change of scenery worked last night. First game in a Canucks jersey, 2 goals. Let's lamp twice. I expected him to be like an Apple guy.
Both on the power play.
Right. I expected him to be an Apple guy. I expected production from him, but immediately putting two in the net, I did not see from him. So clearly the change of scenery did him well. And you love to see Vancouver on the move, not sitting there being dormant.
Well, to that last point you just made, Vancouver's been ahead of the game this entire season. They've been making moves before everybody, and everybody else has kind of followed to try to catch up to what Vancouver has done. I mean, look at they sent over Beauvillier, they got Beauvillier, and then they sent him over to Chicago. They got Zadorov. They have now added Lindholm. They are just on top of things. Everybody else is trying to catch up. And to your whatever point you made, but yeah, he was doing great in Calgary because he had a couple of guys to help him there, Matty Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau. So once those guys left, who came in? Johnny Huberdeau, who we know has not been
nothing.
anything, hasn't done anything. So I really think it's just been that change of scenery, like, getting around solid players in Vancouver. And I'll jump back to Lindholm here in a second, but I'm really happy to see Kuzmenko get a chance now on the Calgary Flames, because he was floundering in Vancouver. He was getting healthy scratched, third, fourth line minutes. So, maybe 8 minutes a night. First game in Calgary, he scores a goal too. So I'm glad to see it from that kid, because he had almost, I want to say 39 goals last year. As a rookie, I guess technically it was his second season, I believe. But, he had almost 40 goals last season. And this year, again, getting healthy scratched, he hasn't been, having much production. But first game in Calgary, he lights the lamp. So I love to see that for him too. It's seemingly a win-win for both squads here. And to finish off my thought on Lindholm, again, lighting the lamp, both in the power play. In both cases, he was right in front of the net. So it was either, I believe the first goal was a tip, and the second one was just a quick off the rebound. So seemingly he's going to be the guy, the bumper in front of the net, to get some play there on Vancouver's power play. So again, we love to see it for Elias Lindholm getting a chance. Another guy that was on the move, Sean Monahan from the Montreal Canadiens, goes to the Winnipeg Jets for a first rounder and a conditional, I believe it was a conditional 2027 third round pick, back over to the Montreal Canadiens. Winnipeg adding some depth to their forward group. Sean Monahan has been doing great this year on a Montreal squad that is not so great. But again, adding a guy that can show up on the power play, which Winnipeg desperately needs. I don't have the stat right in front of me, but they have not been very well. They have not done very well on the power play this year. So adding a guy like Monahan should give them a little bit of a boost.
I love it. Again, right after it happened in the text thread, we're like, man, look at Vancouver and Winnipeg not laying down, like going out there and getting somebody. And again, you like to see Winnipeg go and get a depth piece. I feel like this is Montreal selling, but not like selling the farm either. They're just, because they're still young, so they still have plenty of pieces. They felt like maybe we can do without this guy and get something in return. So I like the move from Montreal. Again, this is about as win-win as it can get for both clubs. Very interested to see, because last night not so great for Monahan in his first in a Jets uniform.
Yeah, that's funny, because in the text thread I was like, all right, over under, both guys are debuting in their new squads, and I looked at Monahan, a power play guy, right? I was like, over under two points total for both guys. And you went with the over. I was like, dang, I can't really go with the under. So I'm going to go with the over too, but I'm going to say Monahan is going to get both hands on the power play. And it turned out to be Lindholm with both points on the power play. So we both, I guess technically we lost because, it was 2 points, but it was interesting to see Lindholm getting those two power play goals and Monahan getting, goose egged, but, Winnipeg, I didn't see Winnipeg getting goose egged by Pittsburgh either. So it's only the first game. It's only one game, and everybody's after the All-Star break too. So you got to get revved up again. To that point about Montreal and getting the first round pick. So Monahan is basically just a rental to Winnipeg unless they're going to re-sign him, which they very well could, because his contract right now is just over $1 million. So Winnipeg very well could sign him. But also he could end up going back to Montreal and signing a longer-term deal, truly. I mean, if he really wanted to be back in Montreal. So if that happened, look at this. They got a first-round pick for Monahan. And if he comes back to Montreal, they essentially get him back. I mean, what a win! What a win-win that would be. So that would be interesting to see. But of course, that'll be some off-season things. One more thing I want to touch on, since we're kind of on there. As I said, Pittsburgh, who they've essentially been looking like they're trying to miss the playoffs again this year. They made a signing over the last week. They signed Jesse Puljujarvi to a 2-year deal, $880K, I want to say. Interesting signing for the Penguins. Signing a guy that he even said himself he doesn't even know if he belongs in the NHL. I just don't understand what they're doing here unless, like, the way that I look at this, and I guess they'll send it to you. If they're going to trade Jake Gensel and get a haul for him, right? Jesse Puljujarvi is not replacing Jake Gensel on the forward line. Like that's it's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna sign Jesse Puljujarvi for 2 years, and then we're gonna get a haul for Jake Gensel. We'll be okay. Like, I mean, listen, Jesse Puljujarvi, I mean, he's a good, solid player. He plays in the NHL, but he's not going to get you much. I mean, he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 230 pounds or so, but he's not going to get you Jake Gensel numbers. So
No.
I guess send it back to you, Justin. What do you make of this move signing Jesse Puljujarvi for a 2-year deal?
I don't know, but I watched. I tuned in like in the second last night, like late in the second. They were making a big deal of it, and like they, he's getting ice time. And when I tuned in, he was on the bench, and they were talking about, the Penn's big signing. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, again, because you're talking about dealing off Gwensel, but yeah, I'm trying not to echo your point, but I don't know what else to say. That guy is not replacing those numbers, so I don't understand. I just
and really, I'm chirping him the most just because, listen, he played with McDavid and Draisaitl for a handful of years, and he couldn't get it done as even a decent forward. So yeah, we got Crosby and you got Malkin. Crosby is still playing out of his mind. Malkin is Malkin. You got Letang and Carlson and all these guys. But if you couldn't become a even decent, almost point per game player playing with McDavid and Draisaitl, I'm not ripping on Sid the Kid here, but you're sort of taking a step down a little bit. Crosby's Crosby, but he's not McDavid and Draisaitl.
right.
So, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
I guess time will tell. Yeah.
Well, last season he was with Carolina, and again, like different players, but like they were a scoring machine. Like they were putting goals in the net. Like I you had Aho, Svetch, and Natchez, and like they're all doing well, and he didn't. Like he wasn't providing. So he's in all these places, but he's not an integral piece. So excuse me if I think that he is your 13th sweater. You know what I mean? Like he is just
Yeah, I just yeah. I just don't see it. But hey, we love to be wrong on this show, so please
Totally.
please prove me wrong. Moving on. So our biggest topic of the day, Justin, a very, 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 and I could say this about 30 more times, very rare W for Commissioner Gary Bettman in the NHL. It has been announced that in 2025 there will be a 4 nations face-off. Yeah, the international calendar resumes next year in 2025 with. It's not technically a best on best because we're missing out on some countries, but Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S. will square off for the 4 nations face off in 2025. What are your initial thoughts on that? And number 2, are you viewing this as a best on best, or do you just see it as some international play, considering we're missing out on some very important countries?
So first, I think to your first question, I have to kind of ask with a question. I think I saw somewhere that this is replacing All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, from my understanding, this will replace All-Star Weekend. Yes.
So did we will this into existence last week?
I mean, I guess we don't have to self-high-five us completely on this one, but we did talk about something different for the All-Star Weekend. So this is different. So maybe like a self-high 2.5.
Yeah. Well, so the reason I ask that is, number one, I'm infinitely more interested in this as an idea than regular All-Star Weekend, because I saw one of the other things that went along with this is the idea of a World Cup, like, so pool play and, leading towards also, I guess, the Olympics. They announced NHL players are going to be allowed in the Olympics again. So
yep.
All that news all together, this is much more exciting. I am much more apt to watch hockey games with meaning at All-Star break than just guys going out there not really caring. So to answer your question, yeah, man, I'm geeked on this. I think it's cool. I think it's a step in the right direction. It is not a full-on best on best, because, like you said, it can't be. We don't have all nations involved. But if this is indeed leading towards a World Cup situation, then, dude, the World Cup for soccer, like, always geeks me up, and it's one of the few times, like, I actively pay attention. I'm a soccer fan, but I don't actively seek it out, except for World Cup time. So if we're looking at a World Cup for hockey, and it's going to correspond, starting with the NHL All-Star Weekend, man, I'm all about it. And it will grow into a best versus best situation. And I love that for hockey.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Again, same thing that you said. It changes All-Star Weekend. Instead of, just watching Connor McDavid versus Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid versus Nathan McKinnon on a 3-on-3, we can see Crosby and McDavid wearing a Team Canada jersey on the same team versus Nathan McKinnon. Is McKinnon U.S.? I don't even know. Is McKinnon from Canada? He might be from Canada too, actually. Anyway, but the point being is, like, it makes it moons different, right? So I'm here for it. And of course, it's not a true best on best, because obviously with what's going on in the world, Russia is not allowed, and as they shouldn't be, in this face-off tournament, round robin tournament. But if they essentially is like, okay, well, if we allowed Russia to have, players like Ovechkin and Germany and Czechia and having David Pastrnak, so of course we want these players to play, but to add one country being Russia, all the other nations were going to pull out. So you're essentially adding one to lose four, right? So it makes sense that they just had it as these four right now. I do think they could have done, say, like North America versus the world, right? And you could have had, multiple, or North America, Europe. You could have changed it up a little bit to allow those other players like your Pastas, Ovechkin, Kucherov, things like that into it. But I think it will grow into something and be a larger thing. But the Four Nations face-off will be over 10 days, allegedly taking place in Montreal and Boston, a round-robin type tournament over those 10 days. So it's very possible, because the point system will be just like what PWHL uses, the 3-2-1-0 point system. So in that round robin, we may end up not seeing U.S. versus Canada in the final, which is usually what we love to see in the Olympics. So it'll be interesting. But again, just to kind of cap that off, I'm geeked for it too, just to see some international play and seeing guys wear their nation sweater instead of the home team type sweater versus each other. And you had mentioned to it, it was announced, and this is a quote from Gary Bettman, and again another rare Gary Bettman W. Quote: "We can formally announce that NHL players will participate in both the 2026 and 2030 Olympic hockey tournaments." End quote. So NHL players back in the Olympics. There was, back in 2022, they were looking at sending them over to Beijing, but then with all the COVID issues still, they decided to pull out from that. So, international play back on the docket. And what we want to do today is, considering this Four Nations face-off happening next year, Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the U.S., Justin and I are going to draft a starting lineup for the squads. Justin is going to do Sweden and USA. I will do Canada and Finland. And we decided before we went on the air that the skaters group doesn't have to be 3 forwards and 2 defensemen. Could be, you know, any position there, but we do have to take a goalie on that starting lineup. So, do you have your guys for either squad? Do you want to just run them down?
Yeah. Let me.
Or do you want to go one for one, or how you feeling about it?
Well, I'll go with America first because there's 3 off the top of the bat that I'm not taking, and it's no surprise. I'm a homer, but I don't see how these guys wouldn't make Team America anyway. So I'm going with all 3 Hughes brothers for 3 of them.
Naturally.
Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes. So obviously, I mean, look right there, you're already killing it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good start.
I think I'm going Austin Matthews here as another forward. You know, Mustache Matthews. Say what you want about him. He doesn't do it when he needs to, but he does score goals. So, and I'm trying to decide which Kachuk I want. I guess I got to go Kukluch, right? Matty Kukluch over Brady. So let's go Matty Kachuk.
I think it's a solid pick. He has a more big match experience.
And then I'm going to go a little shocker here in net. I'm going to go with Alex Lyon from Detroit.
Okay.
Young cat. So he's still garnering some experience, but like, even though it's been kind of up and down with him this year, like the times when he's been up, he's been real up and like looking unbeatable. So I like Alex Lyon in net for Team America.
That's solid. I think that's solid. Okay. So I'm going to go to, actually, I'm going to save Team Canada till second. So let's go over to Finland, the Finland squad. I mean, right off the top, I got to have my boy Mikko Rantanen on that forward line. You can't go wrong with Alexander Barkov as well. And this is kind of a little bit of a toss-up. But at the end of the day, I want a guy who is proven for multiple seasons and not just showing up this season, and that's Roope Hintz, also on that forward line. I was looking at him, and I was also looking at our boy Eli Tolvanen, because he has shown up this year, but he's just not necessarily as proven as Roope Hintz has been over the last couple of years. I got to go with my man UC Saros and net for the Finns. How could you go wrong there? He's been doing his thing for many, many years. And actually I am going to go, with a true defenseman here. Big boy, he's going to hit, and he can also score. Miro Heiskanen on that blue line for the Finns. And I think I do want to go with a true setup here for the Finns. So this is kind of a little bit of a toss-up too. And see, I'm debating, but I'm gonna go with his buddy. I'm gonna go with his line mates. Well, I guess they don't necessarily play on the same line, but Yanni Hakanpää, another big body that is going to play a tough physical game. And I think for a squad that is, while I just named those top forwards, right, but you're still going to be going up against USA, Canada, and the Swedes have some heavy hitters too. So you need to play a physical game if you're Finland. So again, Mikko Rantanen, Alexander Barkov, Roope Hintz, and a true blue line there, Miro Heiskanen and Yanni Hakanpää.
I want to go Homer so bad, with the Swedes. But you look at these names and like you could pluck out any five and they're putting up numbers. And it looks like you can play a bunch of different ways too. I'm going to pick my netminder here first. Linus Ullmark in net. I feel like that's a gimme. Like you kind of got it. He's been one of the right. He's been one of the best over the last 2 seasons for sure. He's listed as number 1 and he's got a new line mate who I'm picking as well. Elias Pettersson and Lindholm. They're line mates now. And so they're going to have some team chemistry going into it. You'll love to see that. I am going to go Homer here, but because he's delivered, he's gotten the big contract and he's really stepped up this season. Jesper Bratt, I'm going to put on the line as well. And I'm going, I know we said, we don't have to do like a true lineup, but these 2 guys jumped out at me. I'd love to see this. Rasmus Dahlin as one of the defenders, and Erik Karlsson on the other defense, an offensive-minded defender, and Dahlin who does both.
I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that you picked Karlsson there.
Just kind of something I'd like to see. Like he feels overrated, right? Because he had that huge season last year. He comes over to Pittsburgh and with all this fanfare, and he's just having a mediocre season. But like the upside is still
there.
For
anybody out there on Instagram, I called that back in the summer when I said he wasn't going to do crap this year and maybe get 30 points. Look where he's at. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it doesn't mean he doesn't have upside. And if you put him on a squad with all those guys I just put up there with him, I'd love to see what would happen. So that was more about intrigue than any true like you had reasons for the Finns. I
Sure.
just want to see what happens here with the Swedes. So.
No, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense for sure. Team Canada, I mean, there's so many guys that could be that will be on this squad, I'm sure. But since we're just doing a starting 5, first of all, 100%, I'm going to pick the guy, the man, the myth, the legend, guarding the pipes, and that's Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm going to pick him to be guarding the pipes. I don't care who else is on the Team Canada roster. Fleury's my guy in the net for a Four Nations face-off. And this is where it gets interesting because I'm going to name off just a handful of names right here that could possibly be on Team Canada. Sam Reinhart, Nathan McKinnon, Zach Hyman, Sidney Crosby, Braden Point, Connor McDavid, Steven Stamkos, Tyler Toffoli, Mitch Marner. Like, all these guys could be your first line on your first line, right? But I'm definitely going to take Nathan McKinnon. Got to go Sidney Crosby on the center, and let's put Connor McDavid on the wing there. Dude, what a killer! What a killer first line, and that's why I took the guys that I took for the Finns, because they are going to have to play a physical game for that if that was the starting lineup. And then this one, I'm going to go a true blue line too. I'm taking Cale Makar on one side of there, an offensive-minded defenseman. And then I really want to take a guy like Evan Bouchard, but I'm instead going to take a guy who's proven and won a cup before, Drew Doughty. So Drew Doughty, Cale Makar, Nate McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Marc-Andre Fleury. And of course, there's going to be a bunch of other guys that are very talented that'll end up being on that Team Canada squad. But that was just kind of a fun thing that you and I wanted to do. But all those rosters, like, dude, in a round robin tournament, holy crap! Like, that's some good hockey right there.
Right, and again, like it amplifies hockey, which is what All-Star Weekend is supposed to do. But the way it's constructed now turns off guys like you and I that watch all year I say that I'm only 2 seasons back into watching lots of hockey, but I didn't watch any All-Star weekend, and I already can't wait for next year, because I can't wait to see hockey that means something in that time frame. Because look, man, like I was watching so much hockey. I was really high on hockey. I was really going out of my way to watch PWHL games, and All-Star break hits, and it was like a break. And I watched last night. I watched the Devs play last night, but that was it. Like I wasn't hyped. I wasn't like, yeah, let's get back into hockey. It was just like, okay, well, hockey season's back on. It like really killed my momentum.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't watched any. I watched about 5 minutes of the Caps game last night when they were already down 3-0 to the Canadians, and they had 3 shots on goal. So I was like, oh, well, it's about bedtime. I'm gonna go to sleep. I didn't catch any PWHL. Kind of the same. I was like, all right, well, there's no reason to watch any hockey, tonight or over the weekend. But that's not to say that we don't love PWHL still. We definitely do. And it's ramping up towards the end of the season. Honestly, they only have about, I want to say 10 or 12 games left.
Yeah.
If my math is correct. So it's winding down there. So again, we don't have 3 stars this week because everybody was on a break. So that'll be back next week. But speaking of the PWHL, this was announced, and boy, there's a couple of head-to-head matchups that are getting big praise. Takeover weekend, PWHL in the Motor City from Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, March 16th. PWHL Ottawa plays PWHL Boston. I should have looked at the standings. But I didn't before the show. But I believe that is going to be a battle for probably a playoff spot, I would imagine, seeing from the scores that I've saw those 2 squads. Are you familiar with what's going on there?
I'm trying to think, because let's see. I know Montreal's up top, Minnesota's up top. I think because Toronto's the basement dweller currently. If you hold 1 second, I will bring up the PWHL standings. I was completely locked in on all this just last week.
We'll
folks.
Stall while you do that. Also, that same weekend, takeover weekend, PWHL in the Steel City, Pittsburgh, at PPG Paints Arena, March 17th. PWHL Toronto will be playing PWHL Montreal. So 2 really big matchups that weekend in March.
Okay, so just a real quick, as of right now, Montreal, Minnesota, Toronto, and New York all have 15 games remaining. Boston and Ottawa each have 17 games remaining.
Okay.
And the order is Montreal, Minnesota, Boston, Toronto, New York, Ottawa. Ottawa are the basement dwellers currently. Toronto actually on a mini tear, getting a couple wins in a row there. So it's 17 points, but down to 10 points.
When March comes around, okay, yeah. When March comes around, that could be drastically changed already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, you look at, so Boston, Toronto, and New York each have 11 points, and Ottawa has 10. So those 4 are all grouped right together, and they're not that far behind Minnesota. So.
Well, I mean, even look at it like this, because there's only 6 teams, right? Each game is very important. I mean, that's a 3-point swing every single game. So every game is important. And then same thing, obviously if you go to overtime or whatever, you get that point. So it's every game is important. So we will be getting deeper into that coverage as the weeks progress here, as we're getting close to the end of the PWHL season. Moving on to some other news and notes, it was announced that the 2025 Winter Classic will be held back in Chicago at Wrigley Field between the Blackhawks and the Blues. I mean, obviously, it wasn't going to take very long to get Connor Bedard in a Winter Classic. I mean, we knew that was going to happen sooner rather than later. Obviously, 2024 was already announced, And funny enough, I don't know where it is, but 2025 is in Chicago. Connor Bedard facing off with the Blues. And this also just in the other day, this is a side piece news. The Blackhawks are 25% likely to get the lottery pick again this year, which would be Macklin Celebrini. So we could very well have Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini on the same team in this Winter Classic when 2025 comes around. Ugh.
Yeah, just ugh. I will say I'm geeked about the matchup, Blackhawks Blues. I think that's cool. I like that because maybe
well,
they're
it's
not
actually a rivalry matchup for once.
exactly, which I love. And
I shouldn't say for once. There has been rivalry matchups before,
but the Blues are kind of like middling, and yeah, sure, the Blackhawks have Bedard now, so they have like star power as far as like a name, a draw. But like, what are we doing? Like, why are we rewarding the Blackhawks again? Like, why aren't they allowed to be bad?
Yeah.
Like, can we just let them be bad so I can be okay with them being good again in like 4 or 5 seasons? Like, I don't understand why we can't. Why they don't have to build their way back up? Like, I don't get it.
Well, see, I'm hoping that, and we talked about this before, I'm hoping that the Sharks do go ahead and deal off as we get closer to the trade deadline and get rid of all of their assets like Logan Couture, Tomas Hertl, Anthony Duclair, Blackwood, Kakkonen. Get rid of everybody so that way they can tank, and then Celebrini goes to the Sharks instead.
Yeah,
that would be great if that actually happened. Because Logan Couture came back for the Sharks and he's been doing pretty good, and that's why the Sharks have won some games. So don't cut it out. That's all I can say.
Cut that out.
Also, a side part of this. So Connor Bedard has been out with a broken jaw. He's going to be out for a few more weeks. Adam Fantilli is out for a handful of weeks because of a calf laceration that happened a couple weeks ago. So I'm about to go on this barn tour in a couple of weeks to Columbus, Detroit, and Chicago. The guys that I really wanted to see, Adam Fantilli and Connor Bedard, are probably not going to be playing. So I'm kind of a little bit upset going on this. I mean, it's 3 new barns, which is going to be great. It's going to be a great time, but I'm gonna go get to see the Buffalo Sabres destroy the Blue Jackets. Well, actually, who knows? They might end up losing. But man, I was really looking forward to seeing Bedard and Fantilli, and now I'm probably not going to see either of them play. So, but I will get to see Tage Thompson. Cross my fingers. So anyway, that's just a little side part of news. Another part of news that kind of has us down a little bit. It's the Arizona Coyotes, and this has been talks for a long time, but this is from the Daily Faceoff. The clock is ticking on the Coyotes in Arizona. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman said last week that the fate of the franchise in the desert would be, quote, addressed in the next few weeks, end quote. But league sources suggest to Daily Faceoff that news is imminent, coming perhaps as soon as Super Bowl weekend. More on dailyfaceoff.com from that. So allegedly, from Daily Faceoff, what Frank Saravalli said is that the Coyotes have missed 2 kind of deadlines that weren't necessarily in stone, but 2 deadlines to let the league know, like, what are you doing? Do you have land? Do you have permits to build? This, and this. And they've missed 2 deadlines to let the league know. So obviously that's a problem. Obviously, we know the trials and tribulations over the last handful of years that they can't get a permission from cities to build, right, or to have an arena. So obviously, this is a problem. And then let's say that they do have this land. There's permits, there's building, so no matter what, let's say that they do have a piece of land, they're not going to even play in a new arena for at least 2 seasons, right? It takes a bit to build an arena. So I mean, it's trouble in the desert. It really is. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I don't want to see them. It's so funny now to say that I don't want to see them leave Arizona when last year I was saying, why are they even there? So signs point to, we talked about it before, Salt Lake City is ready, quote unquote, ready immediately to have an NHL team. So we could potentially, this is guessing here. This is speculating that if anything, Arizona would move to Salt Lake City. Speculation.
It is wildly crazy to think about the swing. You just alluded to this just since we started this show in late March, April, whenever we started. At the beginning of the show, we were talking about move the Coyotes, get them out of there. And since then, they went and made moves in the offseason. They put a really good hockey team on the ice that we enjoyed watching. And now it's I don't want them to lose the team now. It's crazy to see that swing.
Wow.
But ultimately, if you can't get it done, then you can't get it done. And if this is, it sucks that he made me care about the team before he waved the white flag on his little project. But
yeah.
If he's finally waving the white flag, it's you should have done this when they were terrible last season, before putting a good product out there.
And 10 years prior.
Yeah. It bums me out because like I said, they've been a joy to watch this year. I've really enjoyed watching the Coyotes play hockey. And now that I finally enjoy that, they're going to get taken away from me. So yeah, that's
one other thing that was reported by Frank Saravalli is kind of this scenario of the potential of a private owner essentially buying the Coyotes and essentially going through his own pocket to build, right? Because right now the Coyotes are kind of waiting on and going through the government of Arizona to get these things done, right? So Saravalli mentioned this scenario where, say, this new owner comes in and buys the Coyotes and then just uses private sector money to build, is potential too. But I would say, and it hurts my heart, but they're probably moving. I don't see them staying in Arizona at this point, unfortunately. So have to try to get to Mullet Arena before they leave is the true thing to happen. But speaking of the West Coast, LA Kings relieve Todd McClellan of his coaching duties so the LA Kings kick him out. The interim head coach is the assistant Jim Hiller, and then the LA Kings just the other day hired as an assistant coach DJ Smith, who used to be the Sens coach, as their assistant. So Jim Hiller takes over the LA Kings. DJ Smith is the assistant. Pass or shoot, Justin, the LA Kings get a coaching bump in this second half of the season.
Oh, man. So my inclination is to say, because it's been proven over and over again for everybody but the Sens to shoot on this. But you've got Edmonton on fire right now. You've got Winnipeg and Vancouver, holding court. I mean, whether or not they get wins, you hate to see it because they were playing so well in spite of PLD, but I feel like they deserve to lose because of PLD. So I'm going to pass, and I'm going to hope that they lose the rest of the season. Suck on it, PLD.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. I number one, I don't think they're going to get a coaching bump. I think they're still going to suck like they've been sucking over the last 15 games or so. Hey, I like Cam Talbot. I like Kevin Fiala. But I don't care about you, LA. I hope you lose. I hope you continue to fall down the standings. And then you can look at where did we go wrong? Oh, I know, spending $8+ million on a guy like PLD that doesn't do anything. So I hope they lose, truly. That's me chirping the LA Kings. So, but yeah, it was interesting that they won their last game before the break. And then they were like, hey, Todd, you're out, buddy. So kind of messed up, but hey, it's just business. You know what I mean? There's other coaching opportunities elsewhere. The Last thing I want to leave you with, Justin, is actually that, you know what, that might be it. I think that was it. I think we talked about everything. I think everything's covered. I think we covered everything. You got any pressing issues on your mind?
Just one thing real quick. We talked about this briefly with the PWHL, but I don't think we put this out there. Firstly, Montreal versus Toronto got bumped up to Scotiabank in Toronto. So they're going to go play in a bigger arena, number one. Number two, I don't want it to be lost that that those two games got moved to bigger NHL arenas that in March in Detroit and Pittsburgh. That's a good sign for the league that they're moving up to bigger arenas because they're selling out. Love to see that. And I also love that they're going to neutral sites, Detroit and Pittsburgh specifically, because that's how you test out a market. I'd love to see if it's possible to get one here in DC before next season. Would love it, because I want to go to a PWHL game badly. I really want to go. I want to support the league, and I want to show them that DC is ready to have a club. So if you can hear our voices and you live in Detroit or Pittsburgh and you love hockey, go to the PWHL game. You will not be disappointed. It's great hockey, and it's a chance that you could get yet another sports team in your city. So that's my pressing issue.
100. We'll stick taps. Heck yeah, we'll stick tap to that. So yeah, thanks for listening. As always, next week we'll be back with some normal stuff like 3 stars and maybe a couple superstar updates. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We just do crazy things around here. So until then, play to the whistle, keep your head up, stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
You're all.